Great to be with you. Barry Cawthorne's my name. I'm from Bordens in Sydney, and I've got with me here today Mr. Pancho Malhotra, Frontier Performance. And Pancho and I are going to have a chat with you guys about agency health and what that means for the progress of the business.
Okay, great.
Pancho,
let's have a talk. Let's have a bit of a background on myself. So my background's in psych, and I work specifically with principals and salespeople to get the best out of that business. Today's talk is looking at agency health. If you have the overview of what this talk is going to be all about, is we're going to be looking at tools that you can use to examine how you would measure a business, how you would get the best out of a business, and the areas that you would have to do to actually improve a business, whether it's addressing people and profit. And those two key areas need to be working together to take a business to the next level. So we're going to be looking at some tools that you can use to understand how do you measure performance. We're going to be looking at tools on how to implement certain tools, well, ideas and concepts that you can think about. And also then we'll look at the health of a business, both from a performance point of view and from a people point of view, people and profit. So
just ways of thinking. So to make the distinction, Pancho's expertise is in the area of people development, and we came together because he has skill sets that I don't have as the principal of the business. So he's going to moderate a little bit with me and get me to explore what types of thinking I've used to take our business from having 10 people and about 100,000 meters of space 10 years ago to 500,000 meters of space with assets worth $1.5 billion and 35 people in the organization. So something happened to me, caused that to happen. And we link that directly to agency health. Before we go any further, I'd like to say disclaimer. So this is just, it's not advice in any way, shape or form. It's designed today to get thinking. If you guys want to ask questions, please do so as we address the questions. If they pop into your head, explore it with us, because it's kind of like a question and answer, and it's all just hanging around together and having a chat. So let's get on with it.
Yeah, great. What are some of the common myths that people have regarding growing a business? People think about that, it requires a lot of investment here. You've got to change things up. What do you think are some of the things that you want to be considering when you are thinking about growing a business?
Yeah, so in my experience has been, don't get caught up with the idea that providing good customer service and competing on price is going to make you money.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks like that. It's about what you do to yourself and therefore the people that you're leading in the group that is going to make the difference. So it's all about people. Processes and systems are just execution of skill sets that are commensurate with the abilities of the people in the organization.
Yeah. Whenever you look at an organization, there are three things that are always top of mind: people, systems, and processes. And often many of the businesses that are out there have the systems in place.
Yeah, true.
They often have the processes in place. And where the variable comes in is in the delivery, which is people dependent. And if we don't have the right people, we know that we don't get the output for the investment. So we tend to measure return on investment on numbers, but what's the input from the person to impact on the number? And, a real key thing is when we talk about scale in a business, why is it important to grow a business?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think a lot of principals still have the view that, I've got to have a physical footprint. I've got to have an office in the next suburb. I've got to have 6 offices, and it's all going to be great if I get to 6 offices or 12 offices or 400 offices, whatever your ambition is. That's no longer really the case. We're seeing at the same scale take place through the use of technology, which is actually centralizing services. So more gets done in one footprint.
Yeah.
And the reason that works, and we've experienced this as well, is that when you get scale is great, or the ambition to grow a business is great because it causes innovation, and it causes you to think about improving productivity to enhance the experiences of all of the stakeholders, and that gives you energy. So scale in and of itself isn't profitability.
Yeah, and people mistake that.
You can have a lot of big businesses that make very little money.
Yeah, scale, and you've got to take it into context. scale in an IT business whereby they have subscription income, absolutely the right model.
Yeah.
But when you have a people-dependent business such as real estate, then the scale, you're dictated to by the scale of the development of your people. That's the only way you can actually leverage a business up. You still got to get the technology acted upon by people.
And you get a lot of leakage. I've resisted the concept of having lots of offices. You know, I'd rather have 35 people in one spot that I can influence than have them spread over
three or four offices
and get leakage, lose my impact.
I've been really interested in why so many business owners actually give up on the idea of working on their business. I mean, there's the e-myth where they say, working on the business, not in the business. I'm fascinated by how many people actually give up the idea of working on the business, and if they do think they're working on the business, it's a very much part-time thing that they do it. They still get in the trenches and still doing it, and they find it very difficult to let go. So I often said, to grow a business, you have to let go to grow. So what are your thoughts on why so many business owners, commercial, residential, find it very, very difficult to actually grow their business?
You know, one of the things that perhaps the key theme to that is that they actually fail to address their own weaknesses first. My experience was that I had to look at all the things that I wasn't good at. And I do that every day still. And I confront myself, so I can ask myself, well, who do I need to become to make the business look, be, execute? That requires clarity. And you can't get clarity if you don't know what you can't do. So if you get that right first from the outset, then you get the clarity to formulate the business plan.
Absolutely. It's like picking the wrong person at the wrong position in a football team.
Yeah, exactly. So we would see, I think one of the things about agency health today is it's as much about these principles, it's much about key sales managers and owners sitting down and saying, what is it that I don't do well? And how do I need to change myself? Who do I need to become to actually get from the business what it is that I desire? So
it's a people puzzle. And, it sort of brings me up to the reason why people fail to or give up is the key thing I always get asked is, how do you measure the return on investment on training? And it's interesting. You have input and you have output. But most people don't understand input is behavioral change. And behavior takes time to change. I like to talk about, when we talk about measuring the impact of training, I like to actually reference Donald Kirkpatrick, who's a professor at the University of Wisconsin. And he developed 4 steps to actually measuring the impact of training within an organization. The first one is level 1 reaction. What did the participants think of the program? What are their, how do they think about what they're learning? Stage 2, or level 2 learning, is the resulting increase in knowledge or capability. And I think we're going to be talking about that, which is working on the IQ development of the people and the IP development. And level 3 is the behavior, which is the degree which actual behaviors in participants indicate an improvement in capability. And the last level is the results, the degree which an increase in participants' performance translates into an effect on the business. Now, when we look at these 4 levels, what I find, and specifically in the agency world, because I do work in different areas of the market, is they have a tendency to go straight to level 4 and go, okay, we're spending this, we want that output. And they don't actually understand that people all learn differently. They would have learned all differently. If they have kids, each child would learn differently. Now, why are they imposing such a rigid, black or white,
the principles,
on the return on investment on training? And you don't see that applied in professional sport, and professional sports are very, very scientifically led nowadays. So the key thing is that when we look at measuring the importance of training in an organization, what we're really focusing on is, what they think of the program, the resulting increase in knowledge about themselves. Yeah.
This applies to the principals as well, because
Yes.
you mentioned, like, why do business owners suffer from burnout?
Yes.
I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
You know, the business owner suffers from burnout because he can't get salespeople to write the targets,
yeah.
or they can't get the property managers to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
And so the frustration starts to build, and that over time just ends up drip, drip, drip.
Yeah.
And there's a burnout happening. So as a principal, I can tell you my experience has been that you get confused. You go, why isn't this working for me?
Yeah.
You've got a lack of clarity around what it is you're meant to be doing. And so you end up doing unimportant things. You end up stepping in and fixing the problem with the property management, or the problem with the salesman who can't seem to get his act together.
Yeah.
You end up trying to be all things to all people and spreading yourself way too thin.
Yeah.
And so you've got to step back and get clarity around what it is that you're meant to be doing, and equally what you're not meant to be doing.
Yeah.
So don't get involved in stuff that you're not meant to be doing. So Borden's works with Pancho. We employ him and Frontier Performance to execute the development of our people.
Yeah.
And his job, and he's paid by us to go and teach people how to learn to read people.
Yeah.
Because I can't do that. That's not my job. I can train my guys very well, I would hope, around doing deals, managing assets, doing it in a timely manner. I can do all of that really well. And I've worked very hard to become a very good trainer in that discipline. But equally, he's worked his whole life in doing what he's good at. Yeah. So it's like, you know, the top tennis players in the world. It's the same analogy. You know, they've got the physios, they've got the trainers, they've got everybody around them
nutrition,
to help nutrition, to do all the things that they can't do.
Yeah.
And so today, agency health is very much about having a much more holistic view. And I would encourage principals to sort of
take a specialist review.
Yeah, surround, just identify who those people are that you feel comfortable working with, and say, you know what, these guys can help me achieve where I need to go, and be prepared to pay a little bit of money to do that.
Yeah, unfortunately, unless you invest, you don't actually get the benefits of it.
And I think to answer your question, you know, our experience has been that different people and organisations learn at different, they go down the journey at different paces. You know, you've got the front runners who are learning really fast, and then you've got the rare runners, and they're equally working to the best of their capabilities, and they will get there as well. And don't try and put it, you know, I've resisted the temptation of putting everybody in a box. You know, and it's funny how you just all of a sudden someone will say something to you one day, and you go, wow, that person wouldn't have said that 6 months ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And they won't even know that they've changed. But you'll see that development, and you'll see that cultural alignment start to really kick in.
It's about changing thinking.
Yep.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, you know, the roadblocks to watch out for is having lack of clarity, but the real key thing is the lack of flexibility that people have. Is they're very, very rigid, and this is the way it's got to happen, and they're not open to opening their eyes up. And what the challenge around that is, it stops creativity and innovation. And we're living in a very innovative, creative world. And if we look at how creative people have dominated business landscapes, Apple, Steve Jobs, we look at Amazon, what they're doing to retail. We're looking at Airbnb, we're looking at Uber. All of these were people who set up shop in their garages, but have made a dramatic impact on people's lives.
Yeah.
And you can't do that with siloed thinking unless you bring in people who can bring in the creativity. And you talk.
So this is a very esoteric sort of part of the element, you know, of the subject, isn't it? Agency health. I mean, it's hard to get. You can't say this is the rule book, and this, if I do this, I'm going to get this outcome.
Yeah.
So we're introducing you to the idea today that you've got to have flexibility to these concepts, and you've got to do some work in recognizing that they're absolutely essential to the health of the agency.
Yeah.
Other than just the key thematics of ratios and things, which I can talk about.
Yeah, people and the ratios. So you know, if we're looking at what does actually create real value in a real estate business, what does create real value? And it's what you said. It's about the recurring income.
Yeah, so I look at this through ROI. So I expect my business to have an ROI of 25 to 35% annually. And so when I look at that, I want the business to have a real value as attached to that ROI. It's not just about profit, it's about having the business hold real value. It can be sold to somebody. There are two key things. To think through, if the income in your business is recurring, and we're talking about property management, or what I would prefer to call asset management, that is process backed. So it's predictable. There's a process by which everything happens on month in, month out basis, and it's repeatable. If it's process backed income and recurring, you have a set of minutes that manage that. If it's people based, so if it's sales and leasing, if they're involved in residential sales, you've got to build them, and you've got to have a means by which you can measure that against predetermined outcomes. So you've got to have sales performance graphs. You've got to have your people buy into that and say, in 6 months' time, you're going to be in X position or Y position, and then measure that every month towards the target.
Yeah.
So
it was actually interesting when you talked about the asset managers or the property managers, and how a change of thinking has led them to become very, very new business focused without actually asking them to do it.
Yeah. As they develop, well, I'd actually add that the sales and leasing people actually are good BDMs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they work with the asset managers. The other thing I would say is to answer your question, what creates real value in a real estate business is the principals do not execute for income. Okay, never do that. If you're a principal and you aspire to have a business that you want to sell, any banker will tell you, or any astute purchaser will tell you, they will look at your income and they will say, look at how much the principal's responsible for. There is no point in having a business with the principal earning $1 million worth of income and the principal wants to retire.
Yeah.
You ain't got a business worth anything because the $1 million is retiring with the owner.
That's right.
You want the $1 million happening when the owner doesn't retire. When the owner's gone, it still needs to happen. So I always work towards everything in my role as a principal. I always do everything in my business to work towards not executing for income.
Yeah, and that's a challenge for many businesses, especially residential agencies, where the whole focus is whereby you have the principals who are the driving force behind it, and if they don't execute, they don't meet targets, they don't meet income levels, and their business is so highly dependent upon that income to help pay the bills. And so it's a catch-22. How does a business sort of go beyond just the principal?
So guys, with thinking about that, you'll not get clarity around that if you don't have some KPIs, some ratios, I should say. So when you look at your profit and loss, the profit and loss is going to tell you what you've either kept at the end of the operations or not. Hopefully you've got something over. But really what you've got over or not, it's not really that important. And that's a strange thing to say. Years ago, I went to a Macquarie Bank seminar, and they had back in 2007, so more than 10 years ago, and they had at then time above 800K industry benchmark. And what they did is they took things like total support personnel and divided it by the total number of people in the business, and they had a benchmark for that. So how much of your income what percentage should that be, where you've got non-income producing people as a percentage of totals. Revenue per employee. In property management, it was property management commission over total gross commission in the business. Commission over the number of people in so if you're in property management, you're writing, you've got $400,000 a year in fees. How many people do you employ to actually get that? And there are benchmarks available from a good number of people. Banks are very good at that. Macquarie Bank in particular are very good at it, but there are others. And you can set your own benchmarks, and then you measure what your business is doing against that. So if you don't do that first, you don't know where you sit. You've got no context. You don't know what you failed at. This comes back to what I said before. If you don't know where you're failing, you don't know what you've got to do to make the yourself to make the corrections to get yourself up to speed.
So you're in reactionary mode all the time.
Yeah, it's like driving a car without, trying to get to Newcastle and
no GPS.
Don't know how to get to Newcastle. I've got no map, and I have no idea. So I drive to Dubbo, get to Newcastle via Dubbo. It's not very smart. So net advertising, total advertising divided by gross profit, commissions, total commissions paid divided by total expenses. So these are the sorts of things that I look at from my profit and loss every quarter, and annually I record them, and then I measure them year on year. So I've got those going back to actually 1997. So I can actually look at year on year out where my business is going. Is it going up and down, up or down? I think some ratios deteriorating, or some ratios improving. There are really good rates, some less valuable ratios, but there are some very common ratios that are really good. So it gives you clarity.
So
those would be, from a tools perspective, I would say to you that some of the best tools are actually in your profit and loss.
You've got to pull them apart and actually explore them further. Going back to personal hurdles that you face within your business, how did you actually look at overcoming them? What were the things that you looked at that sort of kind of hit you in the face?
So when I set a vision for what I think I want the business to look like, I come back to what I said before. I actually start with myself. So what I've learned is, and continue to learn, is that firstly, self-development, spirituality precedes outcomes. Okay, so you've got to know yourself. You've got to know your weaknesses probably more than anything. You've got to control those, recognize them, and then change your action so that you can control those. Then comes self-worth. This is my experience. Others will have different experiences. This isn't a book. But often you're much better than you think you are. And sometimes you've got to recognize that you're going to go through days where all of a sudden, for no particular reason, you just don't think you're any good. And you've got to go, idiot, stop doing that.
It's called the imposter syndrome.
Is it?
Yes.
Right.
In psychological terms, it's called the imposter syndrome, whereby you don't think you're worth it.
And finally, sort of self-belief. I've written here, and I've said this to Pancho before. You guys would have heard of Will Smith, the actor, and on the bathroom wall in my house, and it wasn't my bathroom for a while, but it's migrated to one of the kids' rooms, is this saying that he used, and says, set a goal so big that you can't achieve it until you grow into the person who can achieve it.
And so think about that, and you really will think about your goals, your focus, your actions, your energy to become that person.
And agency health just kind of improves because of that. So we're really still focused on the mindset of the leader, the mindset of the principal. And if I had to be critical of the industry at large, I see, we were talking about this pre-starting, that we see activities occurring in the industry that are occurring because the principals aren't taking control of themselves. When they take control of themselves, they take control of the people that work with and for them.
And they make the hard decisions. And I think they don't want to make these hard decisions because, and we'll get around to the topic of attraction and retention of people later on, but until you actually make some hard decisions in a business whereby there are things that you will not compromise on, then you have actually no principles. Did you stumble upon these answers, or how did it work for you?
Yeah, I did. When I say I stumbled, it's probably more I decided to develop an innate interest in personal development. And you don't get all the answers from one book. You've got to read lots of books, and some books will resonate, and you'll pull one or two things out of one area and something out of something else, and it just sort of goes into a mix, and everybody's journey is different, and it resonates with you, and you make the necessary adjustments. So I think people struggle, ironically, because
they give up.
They give up because they say, I can't find the answer.
Give it to me now.
And my journey's been that it's really opaque. There is no answer. It's a combination of all the different things you pull together from everywhere over the time. And
then you take some action.
It's important, and I would say to people, it's important if you're going to be a real estate principal. It's really important that you work on yourself without any immediate expectation of clarity. It's not going to come.
Welcome to the fog.
And just be happy with that. You know, you're not going to get the answer straight away, but you'll find that they'll come from the strangest places. I've said to you before, you know, now, you know, we try and travel. I try and travel 3 or 4 months a year, as you know, and most of the time, all the great answers that have come to me have come while I've been away.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that.
You're thinking about it all the time.
There's a reason for that. Is that
I'm a bit nutty.
The real reason is that, have you ever had a problem that you've wrestled with all day long and you can't find the solution, and then at some stage you just let go of the problem, you go, stuff it, I can't figure it out. You know, I just don't know what to do. And you go to bed, and because you let go, and the next morning you wake up, or even get the answer sometimes when you wake up at night, it often happens to me in the morning, is I've let go of a situation I can't change, and suddenly the answer pops into your head.
Yeah.
And it's because you allow the creative part of your brain to get activated. When you're just so focusing on one thing, you stop information coming in from other sectors of your brain and from the environment. So when you let go of certain things, you let go of the pressure to find the solution. The solution actually finds you. But most people, it's just push, 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 push.
Yeah.
And life becomes hard. But creativity is what gives you answers to problems faster. Innovation. I mean, you look at all these people that we've got these world-class businesses started from garages, from people's homes in a very short period of time. You think about where Michael Dell started from his garage. You look at Amazon. You look at Airbnb. All these were people who started from their living rooms, and they've rapidly grown. So what they've identified as a need, but they haven't looked out to deliberately create a billion-dollar business.
No, it's a step.
It's a step.
Journey.
It just becomes.
Yeah.
Well, really, the real key question for me from here is that if we look at the question we've got over here, what made you want to start to working with someone like me? Because, I mean, I work with a variety of businesses, not only real estate, but also other industries. But what was the one thing that sort of, what few things that compelled you to go, hey, we need something a little bit different here?
Yeah, so, you know, as a managing director or a CEO, depending on how you see yourself and the role you want to undertake, I have a responsibility to other directors and shareholders and all of the people that I work with. And so I had to recognize that the evolution of our company required us to continue to change, or we were not going to achieve the goals of growth that we've set. And that led me to realize that the skill sets, I didn't have a skill set that was going to get us there. I needed to employ a skill set from outside of the business all of a sudden, and that's you. Teaching people how to read people, and that's a whole nother topic. We train, Pancho trains some people in our organization 12 times a year. And so 12-hour-long sessions. So that gives you an idea about how much learning is involved and the take-up that's required by the staff. But it just comes back to what I said before. You realize that you've got to invest in areas outside of things you just don't know.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what compelled me to work with you. But I got to that point. I didn't sort of wake up one day and go, I'll have to do this now. I got the rest of the business to a point where it was ready to receive you, and therefore I get value. You might not have a business that's in that place, and that's perfectly okay. You don't have to go and employ someone like Pancho tomorrow, but I'm just trying to convey that it's an experience that you'll have if your ambition is to not work in your business but work on it.
Evolving. Actually, there was interesting, if we look at we're talking about Macquarie Bank, and they're very, very progressive in one area, which was actually making me aware of the McKinsey framework, the horizons of growth, whereby the first level is build and defend, and then evolve, and then take your business to the next level. And whereby we find many businesses, not only real estate businesses, but they're always they're always defending their territory, and they never get an opportunity to evolve their business. And that comes primarily down to leadership, people. If you get that area and you talk about working on the business, the only way you can move from defending, as you know, in the hierarchy of human benefits, like Maslow's hierarchy, is that we're always looking at the base level. We can never go to the high level.
Yeah, right. Because you're too busy putting out the fires.
Yes.
Right.
And if you look at any kind of business, if you are putting out fires, then you'll never have enough time to create a fire of yourself. You know, you always got the extinguisher trying to put out this fire, this fire, this fire, and it's a band-aid approach. And all it does is create stress. If we're talking about agency health, it creates mental stress, emotional stress, impact on relationships at work and at home, and it impacts on the type of people that you actually attract into the business. One of the key things I've often found is that, and this is a high-level thing, should a business be developing itself so it becomes a role model?
A role model.
A role
model for
other people.
Right.
Do the people that are working in the business become role models for others?
Well, I think that's a very good point. I mean, if you walked into Borden's office in Sydney,
yep.
I would like to think that there would be people in that company. I know my directors would say, you know, they would be better people than what they were when they walked in the door.
Yeah.
And so if they ever leave, and they leave because they've grown, then that's life. You know, I'm happy for them. If they've felt compelled to go and do that, that's wonderful. That's what a business should do. That's a form of contribution.
Yes.
And so it comes back to vision.
So once again,
come to that in a minute.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I think about it. It's it's really produces great results for the financial results too.
Yeah, it's quite amazing, isn't it? Huh? Role models for your industry. Now, if we look at some other questions that we've got over here, and I'll ask you a really, really interesting kind of question, which is, tell me something that's true that nobody agrees with you upon, that you find it hard.
High level. For me, life happens for us, not to us.
Yeah.
You know, I look at it through the framework of a problem happens for me, it's not happening to me.
Yeah.
So if you look at it through that framework, you see it as an opportunity to develop.
Yeah.
So the problem isn't the problem, it's how I'm thinking about the problem is the problem.
Yeah.
So that takes some of the emotional heat out of an issue.
Yes.
And the fallout of that is that you deal with people in a better way.
Calm way.
Whether it's the client or the customer or the employee.
Yeah. It's interesting how...
I don't even know if that's an answer, is it? Sort of is.
Well, it's about critical thinking.
Right.
And often when I ask people about doing something and the first response is no, right? Should we do this? No. If we use a very simple metaphor, if I was to ask someone, you want to go to the gym to get fitter, you know, maybe shed a couple of kilos here and there, and the first response is, well, it's going to cost money. I have to get up. I have to do something. All the first response is no.
Yeah.
And it's understanding cause and effect or causality, which is what do you actually get out of going to the gym? They never consider that. They always consider their first answer. And they buy into that first answer. They never consider what do they actually get out of going to the gym.
Tie it back to who do I want to look like in 8 months' time once I've been there.
Yeah. So we buy into our emotional, what I call our reptile brain answer real quick.
Right.
And we're not aware of it because thought happens so quickly.
That's subconscious.
That's subconscious. Yeah. So when we talk about, which is a really interesting question, when we talk about agency health and we talk about how a business evolves, mission, values, purpose, and how they get confused. And I know that you're one of the few agencies that I've ever walked into where I've actually seen a mission statement on the wall. And that really, knocked me over because it's not something that, people do download it from the internet and that'll be us, or our purpose is this. How long did it take you to develop a mission for your business?
So it was a while. I spent a couple of months thinking about it.
Yeah.
What it meant, what I wanted to see it mean for the business, so that I could provide some general leadership when I decided to work with my directors and everybody in the company.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that learning was coming to understand that in life, there's a lot of confusion between what a vision, a mission, a purpose, and values are.
Mm.
And there's a book I just picked up, it was here just a minute ago, and I see a very confusing statement about linking purpose and vision together, and they're not the same thing. And there's an immense amount of confusion around that, and that stops principals from setting it up. And a vision is a picture of, we've decided, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but certainly for us, and this works for us, we've decided that a vision is a picture of how you look in the future, how you feel, how you want to behave. A mission is an outcome that you work towards, and a purpose is a reason that you do it.
Mm.
The values are the human actions. They're the values of honesty, integrity, whatever those things happen to be for you, that you use to anchor all those other three.
Yeah.
So
it's what happens.
It's what happens. So there's. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. It does. Because there's a great deal of confusion between a mission and a mission and the vision, and
not for us. Not for us. They're on our wall. You know,
Yeah.
Our values are integrity, passion, leadership, and trust.
Yeah.
And we have a subset of values in our business for each of those. And what happened to us was that we got alignment. You know.
That's agency health.
Yeah, and that's agency health. And for me, it opened up when we work towards alignment every day. That is, and we don't sweat the small stuff so much anymore. We all know what we got to do, and we all know the values by which we do them, and we know why, and all the other stuff that goes with it. But see, that's opened me up to more learning.
Yeah.
And the guys would say, you know, in our working minutes, everyone's got more learning. You know, they pick up a topic. We'd sit down together in one-on-one, and I say, hey, what excites you? What area of your life would you like to improve in? And how are you going to take up that knowledge? Is it by looking at YouTube, reading books, that type of thing?
Yeah.
So all of that's nothing to do with selling real estate, but it all mixes together.
And it's interesting how one of the key things is that when an organization and the leadership are very clear on its mission and its vision, they actually communicate that subconsciously through their people, through the way they manage their people, through the way they handle client relationships as well.
You see that in Borden, so.
Yes. Yeah. I see that filtering through the way they speak, the way they think, the way they behave, and it's very subconscious.
Yes.
It's become an innate part of their DNA now. It's like if you think about, Simon Sinek talked about the why and how Apple has that immense kind of following. It's because Jobs was so clear on his mission and his purpose on what he wanted to do through his technology. And now the staff carry that mission through. There's no fogginess in the way they communicate, in the way they think, the way they behave. It's interesting because I met a very interesting client a few days ago. And one of the key things he talked about Apple, and he said, you know, Apple do not mind if a person comes into their store and whether they want to spend 5 minutes with that person or 3 hours with that person.
Yeah, actually, that's true. I've been in an Apple store.
Yes.
And they'll take as long as they need with you, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
So how does that affect their bottom line?
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, right.
So that's an important aspect. Now, one thing I want to talk to you about is that I'm going to go back onto the truth around values.
Right.
How it allows a person to self-determine their future.
Yeah, so you're asking.
Yes.
Yeah, so yes. So
and the impact on within your organization of that.
Yeah, one of the benefits as a principal that I've found is that it's not the when you have a problem with an individual, let's say they're an employee, it's not the problem that's the problem. It's you use your values to help that person realize what they violated. Because they will have violated a value somewhere to be where they were. There's a problem, they've violated a value. So if you know what your values are, you can anchor back.
It's a reference point.
It's a reference point. You've got context. So if
it's like honesty, integrity, all those kind of things.
So my job all of a sudden doesn't become, I'm not the boss. I'm just somebody who helps someone realize where they went wrong. And we did that together. We all sat down and we had a whiteboard one afternoon, 2 Fridays, I think it was, or 3 over a month. Anyway, whatever it was. We had a whiteboard and some pizzas, and we just kept going until we worked out what our 4 values were. Integrity, passion, leadership, and trust, and what the subsets of those, each of those were. And then now that whenever we've got an issue, it's just, well, okay, which one's in conflict here? What did you do wrong? Were you dishonest?
It's a conflict in values.
Oh yeah, I was dishonest. So you help the person realize where they went wrong. And I've found that that's alignment.
Okay.
What are they going to do? Say, no, it's okay if I didn't tell the truth? Of course not.
It's a simple way to manage people.
Yeah, I think so.
So when we look at what worked, what didn't work, we like to talk about financial targets. Very important. And the key thing we've seen around financial targets, it works for some people, it doesn't work for others.
True. It actually didn't work. It didn't work for us. When we have our values on our wall and our purpose, mission, and values hanging on the wall, everybody didn't come to work the next day and double their productivity and we doubled our profit. That didn't happen. Nobody changed behavior. They didn't walk up and say, well, now we've got to achieve X millions of dollars of, they're not, because people aren't externally motivated to something they see flashing on a board. That's not going to motivate people. But what did happen is that there was a greater sense of enjoyment that comes from work, because you realize all of a sudden that your contribution is something greater than yourself. So you're helping the client, or you're helping the tenant, or you're helping the owner maximize his return on his investment. So it's greater than the individual, and that's the shift. What happens after that is people face their own failures and they become they increase their accountability, and then follows an increase in productivity. Which then translates to
failure actually leads to productivity increases.
Failure relates, it does. And once you get that, provided you've kept your costs under control, you get a healthier bottom line.
People don't understand that though, do they?
It's a really important, that's just my experience. It's been my experience, and I think
it's a very long-term view.
Yeah, it probably is a long-term view, because that's not something that happens overnight. So some of the stuff I'm talking to you about now is something that we're all, as a group at Borden's, we're all just 30, 35, whatever we are, we're all going through this together.
Cool. So that brings them up your strategy towards people. Your approach to people.
So it's education now.
Education.
So I don't chastise. Well, I get upset. Don't get me wrong. I'm a pretty forceful sort of a person. But I would like to think that I do it ultimately with respect. And because my overarching ambition is to always try and have the person be better off having interacted with me. So that requires humility.
It requires a deeper look at yourself.
And it requires compassion. The ability to be able to recognize that if there's a problem, that put your own frustrations of having the problem aside, and put yourself in the shoes of the person who's also got the problem. And if the problem is that they've come to me with a problem, then they've got a problem, all right, which they're going to be quickly reminded of. But at the same time, it's going to be one of, well, okay, what can we do here together to A, solve the problem, and B, improve so that it doesn't happen next time.
It's very, very important. When we're looking at measuring performance, and we're looking at, the importance of a recurring process, and it's a process based upon, how do you actually measure some of the areas within your business? Some areas are transaction-based, some are recurring-based. Do you have sort of very firm goals and KPIs that you've set for everyone within the company?
Absolutely. Every single person, they're held in our weekly working minutes, which are updated at our asset management meeting and our sales and leasing meetings that we have once a week. If, once again, I think I mentioned it before, if it's recurring and it's process-based, then I measure it through time, because I know that if it's going to repeat, I can put a calendar over it and I can say when that event's going to happen in the future. If I know that, then I can schedule it, and then the person can schedule it, so they know in the next 90 days exactly everything that's going to happen to them in the next 90 days is written down. So if it's written down, it can be scheduled. When it's transaction based, I measure it against a predetermined results expected in the future. So if somebody says to me, I want to write $400,000 a year, in theory, if you were running a straight linear line at Christmas, if you're doing a financial year halfway through the year, you'd have written 200,000, wouldn't you? Yes. Doesn't work like that, but you know, you can measure roughly where you want to be around a line. Okay. In terms of there's something really important here that I've got to add for principles here. When you're checking agency health, you must be able to independently audit those outcomes. So that means that the two things I just said have to be tied back to a policy and a procedure manual. Okay, so you have to be able to say to somebody else in your organisation, please go audit for me this procedure which says, did they do their rent reviews XYZ date? And ask for that policy evidence that that rent review took place. So I can ask a senior asset manager or my director of asset management, please audit this procedure number, and it might be an ingoing inspection report. And he'll be able to go through every single asset manager in the company and give me, expect to get from them evidence that that happened on schedule and the quality of that execution. So that's an independent audit. So you've got to be able to independently audit. The reason for that is it holds, everybody's held to a level of accountability. They know it's transparent. Everybody, there's absolute transparency. There's no top drawers. There's no, oh yeah, well I didn't get around to it. Oh well, look, I'll do it next week. Or you know, the dog bit me, so I didn't want to go in the front gate. You know, all excuses are equal, and none of them work. So I hope that helps, because that's really
important.
It's helped.
It's allowed you to measure.
Everything's measured. What gets measured gets done. It's a true statement.
Absolutely. And when a lot of people talk about how can you measure behavioral change, well, it's very, very simple. It's the output.
The output.
I do certain things, that's behavior. Is it good behavior or is it bad behavior? It both has an economic payback. So it's going into the realms of behavioral economics. But behavioral economics can be understood very, very clearly within any business. Do you see good behavior? Do you see poor behavior? They both have outputs, which is a dollar component of the action.
One's going to be profitable and one's not.
And
exactly.
It's
you don't know what's not profitable if you don't measure it.
That's right. So you can see people's bad behaviors, but the biggest challenge for most agencies is to change that behavior or change the person. And that takes a whole different type of attitude and behavior from the principal to go, that's not tolerated anymore. And once again, having mission, vision, values, and purpose will guide that decision.
I'd also add to that there's kind of two levels. There's an expectation between an employer and employee that if someone is employed to do certain things, that it's implied and directly that they'll do it. That's not personal development. That's just doing what you said you'd do.
Well, that's a job description.
That's
what you're employed for.
The whole people development thing sits on top of that like a cat.
Which is how can I get more out of that person?
By developing the person.
Can they do it better, faster, more effectively?
You'll never get something more out of someone by just saying, look, I want you to become more. Can you please become more by next Friday afternoon?
How? Okay. I'm going to ask you a really interesting question that I find quite fascinating, which is the biggest challenge that you've faced so far.
Probably that I was going to have to up my leadership capability. And that meant that I had to accept the challenge of learning a lot more to become that person.
So leading to the greatest adversity is to?
have the sustained courage to actually execute it, because it really takes courage.
Yeah.
Because it comes back to that, you know, what am I doing? What am I not good at?
Yeah.
And accepting those weaknesses and working to strengthen them up.
Yeah.
And do that on a sustained basis.
That's interesting, talking about strengths and weaknesses.
And don't worry about what other people think.
Yeah. If we look at strengths and weaknesses, one of the key things I've often advocated, especially in the area of sports psychology around teams, is sometimes it's really important to understand what your strengths are.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's really important to understand these are my weaknesses. And if I spend time working on these weaknesses, will it actually make a significant impact on my business, or am I better to get someone else to take care of those weaknesses?
Yeah.
And
which you can do.
Which you can do. Because you can't be it's like being a jack of all trades, a master of none.
So that's what, you know, in using people, you know, having a training that addresses that speeds the process up.
If speed.
Because if you try and do it all as a principal, you know, you can only go as fast as you can't go any faster around things you don't know. You can't teach what you don't know. So
Yes.
if you're busy running your business and setting other goals, well, get someone else to help you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm going to sort of talk about you as a person, the things that have made you the proudest, and you know, how have there been times when you felt absolutely wiped out, drained, both emotionally and physically?
Yes, but
what brought you back? What was your reference point? What was your anchor point?
It's a state. I just recognise that I'm in a state.
Yeah.
And once you know you can change your state, you deal with it.
Yeah.
Just change your state. If you're cranky at yourself, or you're grumpy, or you've got shits, or whatever it happens to be, just slap yourself on the back of the head and say, hang on a minute, what am I grateful for?
Yeah.
And just reframe, move on.
Reframe the situation.
Don't give it any energy. Move on. Wasting time.
What you focus on is what you get.
Yeah,
absolutely. So when we look at the decisions that required the most courage, what would you say were the most important ones for you?
This is a good one. Yeah, actually, that's a good question, because the big ones are the decisions that you know are going to have significant change and emotional and financial risk.
Yeah.
Right. Those are the ones that require the courage.
Yeah.
You know, if it's buying a company or buying a rent roll, if you're a principal, or moving someone out of your business who's just, you know, the elephant in the room, that's going to have significant change and probably some financial risk, and there's certainly going to be some emotion. So that takes courage.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion. That's my opinion. That's the answer to that question.
Okay. Are there, if you do it in kind of a SWOT analysis, what would you say are the threats to any agency business out there, and perhaps some of the opportunities?
Well, I guess like most principals, we're thinking about it all the time, so I'm always trying to anticipate what they are. I'm motivated to think about them because I don't want a WTF moment. You know what that means?
Yeah, what the?
You don't what the?
Oh my God moment.
So your work, the threats. Look, to be honest with you, those threats and opportunities are going to be different for different people.
Yeah.
There's probably plenty of threats around technology.
Yes.
There's probably plenty of threats around salespeople using technology to substitute the interaction.
Yeah.
You've got to kick people up you know, get out there and start talking to people. It's probably more important than ever to talk to people.
Yeah.
Because technology is, in many industries, commoditizing someone's experience. You know, I keep getting Kogan's emails. God knows where they got that from, and I just get told, I'm getting sold a TV 3 times a day, every day for the last 7 days. Now I just got rid of it because that's just commodity. That's just someone flogging me a TV. But if you'd said to me, buy this book because it will help you become a better leader, I probably wouldn't have unsubscribed. So that's an extreme example of how technology can be used to customize someone's experience. And so we use technology in the real estate, in our company, to customize someone's experience. I only want to stick in their inbox, in that subject line, a building that's sold in your street, or a building that leased in your complex. They don't want to know about anything else, but they are interested in something that's rational and relevant to them.
Yeah.
So personalization is probably the opportunity.
Yeah.
And technology is probably the threat used badly.
Okay. Yeah, it's very interesting because that's what Amazon does very, very well.
Yeah.
If you go to the Amazon website and you want to buy something, and say you like fast cars, and you get all the books on fast cars popping up because they're much into algorithms and mathematical.
They're personalizing the experience, aren't they?
Which is what we talked about, psych profiling.
Yep.
Same thing.
Yep.
I'm going to ask you quite an interesting question that I've been asked many times before, and sometimes it makes you think about your regrets.
Yep.
And what you would have changed. If you went back in time, what advice would you give your younger self, and why?
What am I here to do and be would probably be it. I think that because, and the reason that's important is because the questions you ask yourself control what you focus on, and then what you focus on controls, I guess, how you feel, and what you feel leads to your experience of life.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a bit sort of, it's a bit over the top, but airy fairy.
No,
you get it. Feelings, spirituality is kind of important, and that's an anchor.
Yeah.
Yep.
For myself, I know I would love to have spent more time on that, but also having a wise mentor that I could have spoken to.
Yeah, right.
I definitely.
That would be you'd go back for?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
that would be my first point of call.
Yeah.
Because I often found that you pay for the best, you get your outcomes faster.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Nice.
So this is, for me, speed is king. It always has been. And one of the key things is time is the devil. So if we're going to finish this off, what's your vision for the future for Bordens?
Probably personalization. So to simplify our ability to build relationships using technology. I touched on that a second ago.
Yeah.
But in a way that really just helps them. We only want to talk to someone if it's rational and relevant to them. Otherwise, we'd leave them alone.
Yeah.
We don't want to burden them, but we do want to inform them.
Yeah.
Something that's relevant. Using technology, as I said, in my opinion, using technology to commoditize things is dying already.
Yeah.
So talking to people, the consequence of that is key. You must talk to people.
Yeah.
That's our job.
Yeah. So
that's the future. More of the same.
More of the same, eh? Okay. So I think we've provided you with some insights regarding agency health. People and profit need to be balanced both. You cannot just run everything on a balance sheet. It requires the input of a person. It's important to understand how do you work with yourself, how do you set your business up. Looking at the really key things is what's the mission for this business? What's your vision? Do you have a purpose? Do you know what your values are? Because that's what's going to, when people talk about an attraction business, that's what attracts people to the business.
I think so. And, one of the things I say around the places, the guys will say at Bordens is behave as if.
Yeah.
So I always, behave as if you're already where you want to be.
Yeah.
And more commonly known as, fake it till you make it.
Yeah. So let's get to...
Because it kind of causes you to move into...
actually take action.
Yeah, you get discomfort, and you make mistakes. When you think like that, you just get uncomfortable. You put yourself in places you don't want to be, and you get a little uncomfortable, and you make mistakes. But for me, if we're doing that, then we're growing.
Yeah, cool.
We make plenty of mistakes all the time.
Yeah, the more mistakes you make, the more you grow.
You just tell us you're just exposing more and more mistakes.
Yes, all the time. Okay, so finishing it off, if you want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me at pancho@frontierp.com.au. You can go to our website, frontierp.com.au, and you'll find out quite a lot about what I do. And Barry, if you want to talk to him.
Sure, you're welcome, guys. Bordens, BAWDENS. You can look us up on the net. You'll find my particulars there. If you want my email, it's Cawthornb, CAWTHORNB@bordens.com. Even better, give me a call if you like, 0417 288 975. Happy to help you. Hope it's been of value.
Thank you. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.